Hey dear, Zimza here, and so is spring. The sun is shining, the flowers are out, and we've also had so many wonderful, fantastic fantasy books come out this month that I want to talk about, so let's get into them. Let's start with Gallant by Schwab, and this story follows Olivia, who is an orphan who receives a mysterious letter from an estranged uncle who invites her to his estate. She arrives, however, the people who live at the estate aren't expecting her, and she feels like this house is tied to her mother's past, so she's like trying to unravel her family's secrets, and she's also being like strangely compelled to the garden wall where there appears to be some other parallel dimension, and this isn't necessarily a spoiler because it's on the cover, so it somehow involves a parallel dimension. And this story, I feel like at its heart is a gothic, and Schwab is so fantastic at crafting imagery and like conveying atmosphere, and I loved it so much. It had like crumbling manners and ghost like beings. They're called like ghouls, but they're basically ghosts. I know some people were conflicted on it, but I absolutely devoured this book, and I loved the master of the house, who may be the villain, and he's just deliciously creepy, and I loved him. So yeah, if you love gothic stories, I think you'll have a good time with this one. Next, we have A Far Wilder Magic by Allison Saft, and this story centers around an alchemist in training and a sharpshooter who reluctantly team up to join a hunt where they try to chase down and hunt a magical, wild, chaotic fox creature who may be the secret ingredient for crafting the legendary Philosopher's Stone. And yes, this story was loosely inspired by Full Metal Alchemist, especially the magic system. This is like a gunpowder fantasy, so that part I found really fascinating, and in fact, I wanted more alchemy. Basically, this book is very character driven and focuses on the slow burn romance between the two main characters, and we don't get the actual hunting portion until the very end. It's basically prep for them trying to figure out how they can kill this magical creature. So it's not as much in the action department that I would have liked, but if you love romances with some fantasy plot, I think you'd like this one. Okay, next we have A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy, and this story follows Ning, who is guilt-ridden because she served the cup of tea that killed her mother and is currently slowly poisoning her sister. So when she hears that there's this magical tea master competition held by the royal court, she decides to join because the winner gets a favor from the princess, and she wants to ask the princess to help save her sister. So she joins, and this story is really interesting. I love the general premise and a magical tea-based magic system, and it also interweaves in Chinese mythology. It like references the moon goddess, and it includes poison called goo that I've read before in Hunter x Hunter. That's where I first heard about it. So there's this really cool influence going on there. However, where the story fell flat for me is in like its lack of logic and the court politics. Characters make really stupid decisions, and the taste testers for the competition itself are the most valuable members of the court, and they don't have a royal taste tester. So that is beyond stupid, especially because like the whole conspiracy backplot in the novel currently going on is that someone is mass poisoning the tea in the kingdom, yet they have no royal taste tester. It just distracted me. Basic premise, great. I just wish it had more developmental editing and have someone ask the author questions like, hey, does this make sense? Because I'm asking that as I read it. Last but not least, we have one of my most highly anticipated reads that was just so up my alley. It is my aesthetic. It is The Bone Orchard by Sara Mueller, and this one focuses on an ailing emperor who tasks his necromancer concubine named Charm with finding out who his murderer was, as well as offing his terrible sons so they can't take the crown. And this story is like a really interesting magical exploration of personhood and identity, because Charm is able to grow bodies out of her bone orchard. Her bone orchard grows bones, and she like imbues them with a fractured part of her memories and personality. Like one is named Pain, and she's able to absorb pain, like hence the name. And I thought Charm and her different bone ghosts, her different personalities, were really well fleshed out and written. The one downside of the story for me is I wish the sons had been fleshed out more, because basically like the tone in their dialogue is almost all the same. They just repeatedly say bitch, bitch, bitch over and over again, and they can get, I feel like, more creative with their insults. And there are other ways to make you hate a villain. I think we're supposed to hate them, but there are better ways than just having them swear at women. Other than the sons being disappointing, I do think this is a very interesting world. It is inspired by like a Victorian era, and it's very Frankensteinian because the author was in fact inspired by Frankenstein. So if you like gothic murder mystery whodunits, I know that's a niche, but if you're interested in that niche, I think you'll like this book. Okay, there you have it. Those are the fantasy books that I've read for the month of March, and I am still currently reading, haven't finished it yet, Shadow of the Gods by Gwynne, which is like a badass Viking epic fantasy, which I am just having the time of my life with right now, and I will be reviewing its sequel next month, so you have that to look forward to. If you've read any interesting fantasy books, let me know what you've been reading down below. As always, thank you for watching. Take care, everyone.